So I'm at a place spiritually where I'm trying to be more impulsive, which is interesting because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like humans come into this world pretty awesome and then we get like trained on how to conform. And in that like conforming, we lose a lot of our magic. But I was laying here doing legs up a wall and doing some deep breathing. And I got this impulse to make a video about my bankruptcy. I've been meaning to make and upload a video about my bankruptcy probably for over a year now. I have a good friend who is an event producer in DC who also has a bankruptcy, and we were gonna like try to make like a financial awareness event and just like a speak our truth event, and that hasn't happened yet, but I just got this impulse to make this video, and so in the middle of my like evening stretch and strengthen routine, here I am making this video. I'm sure I will do like a longer one with like cool pictures of the like pre-bankruptcy car and the post-bankruptcy car and all that at some point. But the bottom line point of this video is that a good friend encouraged me to file for bankruptcy, and it may have saved my life. I have a long history of depression with some suicidal ideation. It is definitely for me, has gotten better with age, and generally when I meet people under 30 with that, I feel comfortable telling them like it will in fact get better. But I hit a point a few years ago where I was just overwhelmed. I had pretty good credit, like my credit score I think was in the 700s, and I had one card with a $14,000 limit that I maxed out. I think I had another one with like a 5 or 6, another one probably around 10, and another one in like the 5 range. So you can do that math. Let's say like 30 grand in credit card debt, give or take, I don't know. And I was paying my bills, but in order to pay my bills, basically like paying my minimums and a little bit more was roughly like 2 grand a month. And to that end, my husband and I were living with my mother because I was paying a rent payment or a mortgage payment to Visa. And I think most of them were actually Visas. And I just felt stuck and trapped and overwhelmed. But like, I didn't think bankruptcy was for me because like, I had good credit, and I could pay my bills. I thought bankruptcy was for people who like couldn't pay their bills, but I could pay my bills. And I just remember mentioning my financial overwhelm. I've always been an entrepreneur, which is tricky because your income can vary wildly. And if you're an entrepreneur and an optimist, you just feel like next month, suddenly you're going to hit it big and everything's going to be great and it'll be fine. And my friend was like, dude, you need to file for bankruptcy. And I was like, gave all these objections, right? Like, including, like, I did buy the stuff. I did max out the cards. Like, I made a commitment to pay this stuff. And my friend just really spent a lot of time basically gently saying over and over and over again, like, you need to file for bankruptcy. You need to file for bankruptcy. You need to file for bankruptcy. And I started exploring it. And I just like, I don't know, sent like a little inquiry on a bankruptcy attorney's website. And the guy who I worked with, he called me back at like I put the inquiry in, he called me like 10 minutes later, but it was after 9. So I think thought I was like, oh, I'll put this inquiry in. Maybe somebody will call me tomorrow. Maybe I'll get the call. Maybe I won't. And he called me right away. And I told him my situation, what kind of debt I had, what kind of car I had. At the time, I had what I was calling the Magical Mermaid Mustang. It was a 2017 Mustang convertible. and I had it custom wrapped. That was $3,000 with a color shifting that did like mostly a purple to green, right? Kind of mermaidy, but there was some blue in there, and right at like golden hour, it would have this like orangish, reddish look, but only at that one time of day. And I think I paid about $25,000 for that car. I don't remember what I owed on it at the time, but again, I was making my car payments, no problem. And I was having some issues because the car I had before that was totaled and I didn't have gap insurance. And I had no problem, quote unquote. Would have been able to keep paying both car notes, but I was not able to pay. They wanted like the whole payment for that car, like in one. And it was, I guess, almost paid off. But like there were, I don't know, like let's say somewhere between $3,000 and $6,000 left on the prior car. No, that's wrong. I don't know. Whatever. There was some money owed. Yes, $3,000 to $6,000 left after insurance had totaled it out. That's what it was, because it was totaled within like the first year that I bought it. And they wanted all that money at once, and I couldn't do that. So that was kind of when things started getting a little like extra hairy. But anyways, the dude like broke it down. He was like, this is what you do. You're going to take the money that you would have spent on your credit cards. You're going to stop paying your credit cards because they're getting discharged. So you're going to take the money you would have spent on your credit cards, and you're going to save that money up for a couple months and pay me. Then you're gonna like stop paying for your car. You'll get car loan offers as soon as you are finalized. It's fine, and they can't take your car until like after it's done or whatever. And he just walked me through it, and I filed, and I almost missed my hearing because I'm late to stuff. But fortunately, I made it by the skin of my teeth. I made it. And the actual hearing was about 2 minutes long. My attorney coached me on what to say. You have to do a credit counseling course, which I wish were meaningful, but the one I took was totally bogus. Just like an online class to satisfy the requirement. I actually know a lot about credit, but that's an aside. And then you wait a few months and all your stuff is discharged. My bankruptcy was finalized, I believe, like March 9th of 2020, right before the world shut down. I feel like it double saved my life. I would have had, in that interim couple of weeks, you know, that time, do you remember back in 2020 when there was a time where you stopped going to work, but before they told you you were going to have boosted unemployment or anything like that, and there was just all this uncertainty? I would have had so much extra anxiety, stress, chaos, like anguish if I had thousands of dollars of bills I didn't know how I was paying. In reality, I ended up applying for credit cards right away because I did in fact get an obscene amount of credit card offers, and I must have gotten over 100 auto financing offers. They just like came like by the boatload. Every day in the mail as soon as things got finalized. The same friend who encouraged me to file sold me her car for $500, and I thought I was going to basically be driving that car for like 6 months, where I think 2.5 years into that 6 months, the way the pandemic worked out, I got to keep my car for about a year after I stopped paying for it. So that was pretty cool. And I actually ended up being able to like schedule when they could pick it up. It was actually pretty cool. Very pleasant repossession. But I am just so grateful for my friend who pushed me to file. And I periodically tell people to file. Well, not tell people, like I just periodically try to share my story because there's a lot of shame around bankruptcy. When I filed, Trump was the president, and I know he's filed a couple of times, and that was helpful for me because I was like, I mean, if it's good enough for the president of the United States, who am I to say like I can't do it, right? Like that was actually very helpful for me. But there's a lot of shame around it. But like bankruptcy is a tool. It's in place, like it exists for a reason. Um, a lot of these credit cards are really, really predatory. I'm sure some of those bills, a lot of us have paid, what we actually borrowed dozens of times over and just still remain in the hole. And I just like to talk about it from time to time because I hope it helps somebody. Like, I, yeah, like the mental anguish of the financial stress definitely was contributing to my depression, to my suicidal ideation. I just felt like what's the point, And I don't want anybody else to feel like that for something that can be easily resolved. I am not an expert, but I am a person who has a kind of nice looking life. In my cute little deluxe apartment in the sky. I'm an entrepreneur. Go buy a shirt like this from societyofatmermaids.com. I have an awesome husband, and I had an obscene amount of credit card debt, and I filed for bankruptcy, and it is one of the best decisions I've ever made. Because of the pandemic, like, my path to financial recovery has been wonky. However, what I will say is there are lasting impacts on your credit if you file, but a lot of them aren't bigger than like what you can make up with like the cash. Like, particularly in my example, let's just say hypothetically I was working my same job that I was before the pandemic. I now had $2,000 a month that used to go to Visa that I could work with. And so maybe, an apartment had a higher security deposit. I now was in a position to save that. Or, if I wanted to buy, an inexpensive car, either with a bigger down payment than I might have otherwise, like, I had the cash to work with to make up for that. So that's kind of in general how I feel about that. If I ever do a longer, nicer version of this video, we can add more details. But so many of us feel like, oh, I could never do that, but nice, educated, middle-class people file for bankruptcy, and you can too if it suits you. And like, at the end of the day, kind of like, essentially it's free money, right? so yeah, that's my bankruptcy story.